Hi guys, welcome back. I'm Alexandra and today we have a lot to talk about. Today we're going to be covering episodes 1 and 2 of The Bachelorette. I really thought that I was just going to skip episode 1 because episode 1 is usually just meeting the men. It's like the same limo exit over and over again, and I usually just think it's really boring and that there wasn't going to be anything to talk about. But it is worth going over because there are some parts to extract that I think are kind of interesting. And then we'll add episode 2. So we have a lot to talk about and we're going to just jump right in. Episode 1. So the episode starts by giving us a reminder of who Charity is, just so we can get to know her personality a little bit. Charity is very smooth, she's very buttery, she's got some sass underneath her, and more importantly, she's very universally likable. I think she appeals to a really wide audience because she presents herself with like no rough edges or opportunities to disapprove of her. She's smart, she's graceful, she's poised, she's a bit conservative in how she carries herself, while also being appealing and trendy and beautiful. To me, this is like the perfect projectable lead. I think she's a triple attachment 9. I think she's a social self-preservation 9-wing-1 with a 6 fix and a 3 fix. So that's my read on Charity. You guys let me know if you disagree. We're reminded that she comes from the season with Zach, who is a 3 and easily the most boring man ever in the world. Anyway, then we chat with her family a little bit. They're all nice. And then we go, and then let's just move on to the limo exits. She meets Jesse Palmer and she tells Jesse Palmer that the men should just be themselves. Okay, limo exits. I'm not going to go through all of them, but I want to compare the in-person impressions from the photo impressions from my last videos. There's just a few of them I want to cover. First, Aaron B is for fucking sure a 9. I mean, look at him. He's just emanating this like smooth, big body energy. He's definitely a self-pres 9. Josh might be a 2. Honestly, I think I typed him as a 3-wing 2, but there was just a lot of sweetness in his energy that he might be a 2. We'll see. Xavier, Jesus, just mega super mega 9. Nick, even bigger 9. The backflip guy, whose name I can't remember, I think I typed him as a 7, but based on this episode, he might be a 3. There was something very, like, braggy and show-offy. He might be a 3. Spencer had the just strangest energy that I honestly can't type him. I think I typed him as a 9 just based on the blankness of his, like, picture and profile. But in person, I don't know that I get 9. I don't know what type I get, but he had just the weirdest energy. You can tell that Charity's therapy background really came out because she was just so patient and tolerant. She just really went into therapy mode with him. All of her therapy magic 9, let me make this comfortable for both of us powers really came out with him. Dotun had way more swag than he did in his pictures, and I think he's a really good example of the body swag that can come out of 9. To me, he's still just like an enormous 9, but he's got a good amount of 3 in there. There's some charm, there's some sparkle. I thought that was interesting because his picture was just so still and mute and not moving at all. But then when you see him in motion, there's a lot of sparkly energy there. Anyway, her brother comes out of the limo. They have a sweet little moment and then that's over. Then we move on to Charity giving her speech to the guys. Very generic TV speech. Okay, moving into some of her one-on-one time, we start with Joey. My impressions were that it was kind of awkward. He seems to be speaking in platitudes a lot. He's not making much eye contact with her. He's actually kind of interrupting her a lot. I got a vague sense that he was aware of the cameras in a way that made him self-conscious. Like he didn't really seem very in his body. Even when she was leaning into him, he was just kind of staring off into space. So maybe it's the newness of the environment, but there was something off there. Besides all that, Charity clearly finds him hot. Okay, next we have one-on-one time with James, who I was totally off about him. I thought James was a 3 based on the bio, which, by the way, I found out that contestants have very little say on the final bio. I guess they like send in 1 billion pages of content about themselves, and it's producers that put the bio together that we read. So it's not even their fault that those bios were so blank and boring. It was producers trying to make them more palatable, or maybe. But yeah, I do think he's a 9. He just didn't have that active, assertive, grab your attention quality. He was very laid back and chill and really let the moment speak for itself. Next, she meets Xavier. She has some extra time with him. He says that he wants an honest, genuine, and vulnerable partner. which is nice, I guess. But what I got from this engagement is that it really seemed like an excuse to be close to each other. They were making a lot of eye contact. It seemed like they weren't really listening to each other. I got a clear sense that they were attracted to each other and that they didn't really care what they had to say. Oh, it was also in this interaction that I think I saw social self-pres in Charity. She wasn't giving the same kind of wall energy that some of the self-pres dominants do. She's very engaged. She makes a lot of eye contact. The questions that she asks are for the purpose of extracting more about who they are. Not to mention, that kind of energy usually gives a type more of an upswing than self-pres does, which I think is why she comes off a little bubblier, a little more engaging, and just generally more energetic than someone like Aaron B does, who's just a wall of body energy. Anyway, they kiss, they make out, great. Then the show goes to Nehemiah, who is Charity's brother, and this part is so annoying to me. Let's move on. John gets some one-on-one time. Again, they bond over their siblings, which I think is the second or third time that Charity and one of the men is bonding about family. There's really not much to say on that. It's just like classic affirmation that we both value the same things. But then the thing that you're valuing is something very common and easy to attain. So it's an easy check mark to check off. I did find John cute and thought that they really liked each other. They kiss, they make out a lot. Cool. Then the host comes in and puts down the first impression rose, which moves us into this segment that I thought was kind of funny. Aaron, one of the Aarons, says, let me read it. It's a full display of mating season on Animal Planet. The male suitors are doing their best to woo the only female in the home. You're seeing every man in heat twisting their wings, showing off their testosterone in hopes to woo the woman. I thought that was very funny and very accurate because you see that flip guy flipping around all over again. He's super annoying. And you see the wrestler just like smacking someone down to the ground. It's just kind of a funny commentary on the sexual instinct. In this moment, everybody's trying to like grab for attention and look like the most impressive person, even if they're not actively aware that that's what they're trying to do. Okay, then we move to some one-on-one time with Spencer that is clearly very uncomfortable. The most notable thing was how, and this is like triple, quadruple confirmation of Charity being a 9. She immediately goes into like her 9 survivalist mode, which is to make him comfortable so that she will be more comfortable. The 9 mentality is if I can make you stop acting so weird, then you will stop making me feel so weird because you'll be regulated and calibrated and we can just be comfortable together. Yeah, her body language is tight. Her words are very affirming and gentle, and she really speaks like, I know she's a child therapist, but she also sounds a bit like a kindergarten teacher listening to some nonsense from a kid where she's saying stuff like, yeah, that's really great. Really affirming, gentle stuff like that. I know with myself, when I'm uncomfortable, I immediately engage that mode. I try to be very boring or very affirming so that whoever's making me feel weird can just get what they need and move on. And that's what I see Charity doing. Okay, we meet Aaron B for a little bit more. He's playing on the piano and talking over the piano playing like he's giving a sermon. It's a little weird. Similar to Joey, I do believe that he's a 9, but he's acting a little tense. So I'm wondering if his behavior here is an insecure move to 3. And what I mean by that is that he's acting off of what he feels will make him look good versus a really embodied energy. Like, he just doesn't feel too fluid to me. He feels a little bit like he's acting off of a script, which I guess is normal for night 1 because everybody's still getting to know each other. This is their first real meeting, but that's what I noticed in that interaction. Anyway, he brings that dumb coin out. They make out. Charity really loves to make out. We go back to the brother. That's boring. Okay, Brayden. Brayden is very positive. I think I typed him as a DJ 7 or 9. I can't remember if it was a 7 or 9, but I know I typed him as a DJ. I think it's possible he could have a 2 fix, making him triple positive. I think his intro package was like him doing yoga on the beach or something like that, and he's covered in all those weird beads, and he just really has this loving way of speaking. I guess not speaking, but it sounds like to me it is clear that he wants to be seen as a loving person. That is in his self-image. So maybe it's a 3, maybe it's a 2, but I think it's in that space for sure. He tells Charity that he can be over considerate to the point where it hurts him, which is okay. Charity really likes this. She says she relates to the experience of overextending herself. I know that they make out at the end. You guys can let me know what you think, but I didn't get the idea that she was attracted to him on a sexual level. I think Brayden reflected a lot of the things that she has in herself, and what she was excited about was a social alignment. She was excited about the sameness. They've both been mistreated by other people. They're both very giving in relationships. They're both very loving. I think she liked the similarity between the two of them, and that excited her nervous system to where she went to make out with him. Especially when you compare this to the energy she had with Xavier, where they were just locked in eye contact and kind of continued moving towards each other, and it just felt like they weren't listening to each other. When it came to Brayden, Charity did seem like she was listening to Brayden, and like Brayden was listening to her, and like they had a social activation with each other that she was confusing for sexual attraction. That's my read on it. I just didn't see like a primal activation with her and Brayden, which is great because he sucks. Brayden really gives me vulnerable fuckboy energy. Like he's leading with sincerity and good intentions and nice guy vibes. But to me, he really just wants like validation and playthings more than anything else. I think he probably uses plausible deniability and enthusiasm to be boastful and kind of subtly stake his claim on Charity with the other men. They all seem to pick it up. You can kind of tell. To me, his strength is being able to sell a level of innocence to where me as the viewer, I'm wondering, is he oblivious to this intention or not? I also think he's a 7 core now. Again, I can't remember how I typed him. I think I typed him as a 9. His center of gravity is really high and he's really heady, especially compared to the other 9s. Their center of gravity is really like low. And Brayden doesn't shut up. He's really coming across as arrogant and annoying to people, and the other 9s are just like, cool, dude. Okay, so next, Nehemiah takes off his little disguise and tells the men that he's, oh my God, I'm her brother, and I've been listening to all you guys, so now you better be careful, you better be scared, and goes to tell Charity basically that Brayden sucks. Is it Brayden or Brandon? Brayden, right? Brayden. I do think that this interaction was pretty cute for a few reasons. He continuously leads her back to her own preferences and decision making. He says things like, only you know the answer to that, and just really empowers her to make her own choices. So on the Enneagram, 9 uses the object relation of attachment. This is different from attachment theory. This is the object relation of attachment. This means that she is constantly checking in with her source of comfort in order to make sure that she still has it and that it's not at risk. When 9s feel that their source of comfort is at risk of being lost or, in somehow threatened, they will adapt their own behaviors in order to keep it. In this way, 9s attach to the sources of their own comfort, and in the process of attaching, they will shrink their own preferences, their own gut reactions, and their own agency in order to exist within the availability of that source. This is often how you get 9s that will stay in toxic relationships, which we already know that Charity has experience with, considering an ex-boyfriend of hers cheated on her a bunch of times and she was with him for like 6 years. Charity, as a social type, is going to be attached to her connections and her bonds. And to me, it's very clear that her brother is a source of her social comfort. So when he says things like, you are more than capable of making your own choices and decisions, and I trust you, that's an exact quote. She's giving her the space and permission to exercise her own will, her own preferences, her own agency, while also feeling supported and secure and loved in her bond with her brother. It was just a small moment in the show, but I think it's worth explaining because I think it gives us good information on how she's going to project onto other people. Is she going to think that everyone will be an adequate source of comfort, or is she going to have an easy time being able to identify red flags? We'll see. Okay, so anyway, Nehemiah, her brother, tells Charity that Brayden sucks, and in response, Charity basically goes and grabs Brayden right away to tell him that his brother thinks he came off overconfident, and basically she makes him explain why he could have come to that impression. Brayden basically says he wasn't trying to be cocky, and in general, he just expresses a lot of enthusiasm about his time with Charity, and chalks up that impression to just being giddy about their time together. He says he wasn't trying to brag. I think the show makes Charity do this like dramatic thing where she tells him she's going to take a breather to put him in suspense, blah, blah, blah. But then she comes back and tells him that he had every reason to feel confident because she felt the same way. It works out well for him, and then he gets the first impression rose. This part, I think, says a lot about Charity because what she tells the camera is that she wants somebody that is going to be proud to be with her and not shy about expressing that. So it seems obvious that his bragging and kind of cockiness and overenthusiasm, she took it as flattery and as affirmation that he was feeling the same way she was feeling, which is, I don't know, to me kind of a red flag, but we'll see. From here, some of the other men comment on Brayden's dynamic with Charity already. There's a declaration of war by Aaron, which I think is very funny. And that's basically it. Then the host comes back in, announces the rose ceremony, and they move right into it. Spencer, that like weirdo from earlier, has this really unhinged moment while they're waiting for the roses to be passed out, where he says that a rose from Charity would validate that he's a good person, which is so weird. But it's also worth mentioning that during the actual scene, like when he's actually in the room waiting for a rose, he's totally fine. He's perfectly still. He's kind of stoic. He's maybe a little nervous in his eyes, but for the most part, he's composed. But in the interview where he's talking to the camera, which is filmed at a different time, he's like unhinged and crying. Anyway, I don't know that I get 9 from him anymore. I kind of feel a dose of image, so maybe he could be like a 3, wing 2 or something like that. I don't expect him to be around very long, so I don't really feel like talking about him. Anyway, then she hands out the rest of the roses, and the men going home are Chris, the world record jumper, Joe. I think I like really hated on Joe, and he just did not seem that bad in person. Khaled, Nick, and then Peter and Taylor, who I really only remember because of how forgettable their bios were, ironically. The teaser for the show shows some more man drama, which is the best kind of drama. And Charity looks kind of spicy, which, yay, we love a spicy 9. Episode 2. Episode 2 starts off with the men talking about Charity, just kind of general saying vague nothings. And I just cannot believe how much I dislike Brayden, I keep forgetting his name. Brayden's energy. The fact that his energy just emanates right into his like stupid clothing style is just crazy. Anyway, then Jesse Palmer comes in and downloads with them. Brayden's entitlement starts to come out. He says that he deserves to get the one-on-one, and he mentions the first impression rose a million times, and you can just generally tell that the other 9s are annoyed with him. But he does not get the first one-on-one. The first one-on-one goes to Aaron. Aaron and Charity take a car ride in this like red classic car up to the Hollywood sign, and in the car they basically bond over more relatability. They both had military parents, they both like old school music. There's really not much to the conversation, but something Charity does say to the camera in an interview. She says, "I've been in relationships where I know how I'm feeling, but for that person to relay it back to me and truly mean that, I don't know what that looks like." And this is why she likes Brayden. Brayden is enthusiastic and shameless about what he's feeling in the moment. 7s just really have this loud, contagious enthusiasm, and I think that's what Charity is flattered by. He can really locate whatever he's enthusiastic about, and it happens to be her. And she likes that. What she doesn't know is that the enthusiasm of a 7 lasts for like 2 seconds. Not always, but a lot of times. Anyway, back to Aaron and their date. Something I recognize is that Aaron says comfortable like a million times. A lot of how he's evaluating the date is based on I'm comfortable. Just like go back and watch it. He says it like 5 times. They both sit down by the Hollywood sign and they both express the value of commitment and longevity, which again is more relatability, more alignment, more sameness. And Charity tells the camera that she recognizes that he has the same model as she does, which is kind of interesting. We cut back to the house and Adrian, who's starting to get really pissed off by Brayden. Adrian is starting to promote himself as sincere and here for the right reasons, especially compared to other men. We know it's Brayden, just say it's Brayden, who are more goofy and who are like messing around more and stuff like that. Back on the date with Aaron, they both talk about having a spark, which is like funny to me because I do think there's a spark. I really do. But I think that they have not gotten to like the meat and potatoes of who they are yet. There's no substance. I think they're both just good at regulating each other and both good at making sure that the energy has no uncomfortable ripples. And that's what they're basing their spark off of. In my notes, I wrote, are they really feeling a spark or are they just relieved to be comfortable with each other? And they're confusing that for momentum and pull. Anyway, then they go to dinner and he says something really funny to me. He expresses that he wasn't the best boyfriend because he could have been better at listening and communicating, which to me is just so funny because it's classic 9 indulging in too much sloth. It's a classic 9 falling asleep to the point that they're not engaging with their partner, with the world, with the energies around them. So it doesn't sound like he did anything egregious. He just wasn't an engaging, active partner. Very 9. Anyway, then he says something about therapy and Charity really eats it up, which was frustrating for me to see. I get that they probably do have a spark, but Charity is giving some red flags where she's doing this thing 9s do, where she gives premature acceptance. Brayden is basically giving her nothing, I guess just enthusiasm, but she's already decided that he's a good person. And similarly here, what have her and Aaron really talked about? They've talked about how they are similar, how they both want longevity in a relationship, and I guess how they both felt a little undervalued by previous partners. And she's already kind of gung-ho about him. Again, I recognize that there could be like a body kind of sexual energy that she's working off of, but based on the communication that they've had back and forth, there's just not that much to go off of, to me, for her to be this excited. She uses the word commend for basically meeting the bare minimum. And that is a thing that nines can do. A lot of time, nine standards are just a lack of red flags. And I think that's what she's seeing with Aaron. He's not giving any red flags, but it's just an absence of danger. It's not the presence of something amazing. Anyway, he gets the rose. They make out. They really are a hot couple. Like, they're both very good looking individually. So hopefully they can continue to open up in a real way now that they're comfortable with each other and see if things can move along. Okay. Next, we are going on the group date to the beach. This part was generally very boring to me because it was a sports-based thing, and so they just like do sports, whatever. The main narrative being pushed in this section is Brayden has a me focus, while Adrian's focus is, yeah, this was kind of funny, I guess, because Brayden's sevenness is just very focused on himself and the time he's gonna get and his sense of competitiveness, where Adrian's ego was more about, this is not a one-on-one environment, this is a group setting, and we have to, his sense of ego was his compliance to the fact that the attention needs to be on the group and not himself, which is so nine. Nines are, of course, going to be egotistical about the fact that they don't pay attention to themselves, and I think that's 100% what's going on with Adrian, and why he's so fucking annoyed with Brayden, who literally can only think about himself. They do some sports thing, which is boring as fuck. I am just horrendously bored by sports because there's no social dynamics to observe, so who cares about the sports part? Let's move on. So the pink team gets more time with Charity, so does Adrian, everyone else goes home. The only thing of note in this section is that the wrestler guy, I forget his name, but the wrestler guy is kind of charming to me now. I really read his energy wrong. I really thought he was going to be a douche. Well, I guess he is kind of a douchebag, but he also gives like lovable dumb jock. I think he's kind of cute in like a dumb bro-y way. Okay, we move on to the night portion of the group date. And again, the main narrative is between Brayden and Adrian, who are competing. 7 versus 9. Brayden gets some one-on-one time with Charity, and he verbalizes, I think he says, I'm very attracted to you, which we know by now Charity really loves that direct expression, so she just eats that up. John has some one-on-one time, who I think is very cute. They've got a nice reciprocal vibe. They like make out really hard, which good. Anyone that can take Charity away from Brayden, I'm on their team. We cut to Brayden talking about the first impression rose a billion more times because everything's about fucking Brayden. At some point he says, maybe I sound like a spoiled brat, which like, yes. Not all 7s, of course, but 7s can really come across like spoiled brats. They want what they want when they want it, and if they don't get it, they're going to throw kind of a tantrum about it, and we see that with Brayden through the rest of the episode. Anyway, Adrian is so fucking annoyed by him, and it's so funny because he cannot express it directly. Instead of just telling Brayden, hey, you're fucking annoying, can you not be so annoying? He philosophizes about the correct way to behave. I can't remember what he says, but he like uses himself as an example of the correct way to be. He says something like, I won MVP and still want more time with him. You should be grateful. This kind of like super ego adjacent energy where instead of just owning his preferences and saying, Brayden, you suck, he has to do this vague correction of his behavior, which is a very funny contrast to Brayden because Brayden tells Adrian directly, hey, I wouldn't have picked you as MVP, and then just kind of laughs about it. Like there is this lack of self-consciousness that 7s have, this lack of attunement to their environment that 7s have, where Brayden doesn't understand how like selfish and obnoxious and self-interested he's coming across to the rest of the group. But you can tell in literally half of a second how everyone else can pick up on how annoying Brayden is. Those two are a good example on 7 contrasting 9. Even while they're having this discussion, Adrian's energy, he's like fully sunk into the couch, just this like heavy body energy. He like cannot be bothered to move, while Brayden's energy is like really buoyant and really up and really positive. He's really entertained with himself even when he's annoyed. Okay, then Adrian gets some one-on-one time with Charity and kind of vaguely this is another 9ism, vaguely mentions that some people, who's the one person he's annoyed with, some people are acting like this is spring break and he doesn't like it and doesn't think that Charity deserves that kind of behavior. I'm ad-libbing a little bit, but he totally thinks that. Yeah, and again, some men, some people, like he's not being direct and clear and specific, about the fact that he really only means Brayden. It's possible he means that wrestler guy too, but it's clear that Brayden is the only person he's like pissed about, who is like affecting him and making him annoyed, irritated, but he just keeps it really vague. Anyway, then Charity comes back and sits down with all the men, and the first thing she does is she says, someone told me that you guys are acting like this is spring break. That makes me really uncomfortable, and I hope that that's not the case. And Adrian says nothing. Charity gives John the rose, which is very cute, and that's the end of the group date. Next, we move on to the second group date, which is super awkward. Charity has all the guys compete for the opportunity to break Bachelor's longest kiss record, something like that. They have to answer a bunch of questions, and then she will choose the person she wants to try to beat this record with, and she just makes out with this person for at least 3.5 minutes. It's very clear from the beginning that Joey is the standout, and the show really gives him a lot of attention. Some of the girls say, hey, he's been staring at you this whole time. And yeah, we get to know Joey a little more. We really see the glowy 9 thing. I see a lot of 3 in Joey. Confident, cocky 9 while still not taking it over the line, like Brayden, for example. Charity's super cute. She has this like little PowerPoint on how she likes to be touched and kissed. And fast forwarding, she ends up picking Joey. And this is after Joey tells the story of his best kiss and frames it to be the story of what his kiss with Charity will be. Honestly, pretty smooth. So yeah, he wins. These 3 fixed 9s, man, they can be so glowy. I think it's possible he's a social type. There's something about his eye contact. I know he had really shitty eye contact in the first episode, but he's like fucking locked in on her, just staring into her soul. And she clearly likes that. As we've seen through the episode, she really likes direct attention, and he's fucking giving it to her. Anyway, then they make out for forever in front of everybody, and the other guys comment on how uncomfortable that is. But yeah, Charity clearly wants to be adored, so she's eating it up. Horny little 9. Anyway, then the men are sent home, and Joey gets a one-on-one, and so they have like a night portion. It doesn't last very long. Back at the mansion, Brayden, I'm just amazed at how annoyed I can be by one person. He's horrified. He's really jealous. He's really possessive. He says he feels like a punk because Charity is just like making out with this other dude when he exists. Then while Brayden is blowing off steam, just like frustrating, Adrian gets mad because he says that Brayden is dismissing that other guy's feelings. No, that's not what's happening. He's not dismissing the other guy's feelings. You, Adrian, are just taking any opportunity you can find to like passively leak anger towards the guy that you're annoyed by instead of just saying he sucks. Brayden obviously sucks. It's very clear. But it's a very normal, natural thing to be jealous about this. And while Brayden's delivery of that jealousy and possessiveness was like really entitled and not palatable at all and self-centered, it still makes sense that he would have that reaction. But Adrian took that as like another offense to justify his anger push towards Brayden. Also, it's just such 7. 7s just have this way of blurting out whatever they want without any regard to like the etiquette or the tone of the environment. Back to Joey. Like I said earlier, Joey does feel like a 9 to me, but he's just so glowy. His eyes are just like, at his face, he looks a little bit like a Disney prince, and Charity has a similar glow to her. They make out like crazy. She's like clearly very attracted to him and is probably excited to kiss him. Then they move into some more family talk. Charity gives him the rose, and then she tells the camera that she feels really safe with him, which is another 9 thing. Just 9s providing other 9s comfort and safety. Just comfort provisions for the 9s. Okay, back to the house. The next day they have a barbecue instead of a rose ceremony, and Brayden's just acting like a bitch, you know? He's just acting entitled, and he's pissed off, and he won't stop talking about the kissing thing. At some point he says he's going to leave if he doesn't hear what he needs to hear from Charity. Okay. Charity gets some one-on-one time with Dotun, which I loved. Dotun says he wasn't going to do the show until he found out that it was her, which is some nice flattery that we know Charity loves. And yeah, he just has a really nice, easy, kind of swagged out vibe to him. He shows her his residential alien card from when he moved to the U.S. from Nigeria, which she finds to be very charming. And I thought that was a nice touch. There's like some individuality in that instead of nice platitudes like all of these other guys are mostly giving her. He says his like full Nigerian name, which is also cool. She gets some time with Tanner. She seems super bored by him. She says some nice things about him to the camera, about Tanner to the camera, but I get the vibe that she's just being polite. And then we cut to Brayden again, philosophizing about the value of being selfish, which is just the most quintessentially hilarious Seven-ism that could be exemplified on the show. He says something about how being selfish isn't a bad thing and how people need to be selfish, which is just amazing because he clearly takes it too far, where he's just sucking the air out of the room whenever he doesn't get what he wants. Anyway, then Brayden and Charity go and talk, and something I thought was interesting was that pretty immediately Charity says, hey, yeah, cool, things are good. I was just really thrown off by the last group date with the whole spring break accusation, which I thought was interesting because nobody told her Brayden specifically, and yet she brought it up to Brayden. So that has me wondering if she's starting to pick up that the spring break thing was definitely about Brayden without saying it to him directly. But of course, Brayden doesn't take the bait. He just immediately pushes his agenda forward and says, yeah, I was really thrown off too. I heard about the kissing date and I thought it was awful and I almost wanted to leave. At some point, he says he doubted her character, which is a bananas thing to say. Her reaction was very stoic. Like, she didn't give a reaction, but I had a reaction sitting and listening to that. If somebody fucking said that to me, I would have wanted to chop their head off. But she maintained her poise, which is good for her. He said he felt he was lied to, which I don't know how he came up with that. She, again, gives no reaction. And yeah, he says he was ready to run away. Her reaction was really weird. I feel like in a different setup, her reaction would have been to maybe feel offended by some of this stuff, but instead she's just expressed sadness that she offended him and kind of explains herself. And then he reroutes to just flattering her, and it's over. The flattery just like eases her again, and then she does this weird positive reframe where she tells the camera that he was just honest and vulnerable with her. That's crazy. I kind of think it's because she's already attached to him. And so she's already doing the 9 thing where she's like putting on blinders to things that she should not have blinders about because she wants to keep the attachment to him. She wants to keep their bond. So we'll see what happens here. Anyway, then she moves on to talk to Adrian. They have some one-on-one time. And the first thing that Adrian does is he apologizes for the impact that bringing up the whole spring break thing had. And she uses that to basically bait him into more information, which he takes. He was so excited to take it, so of course he takes it. He tells her about Brayden's reaction to the whole kissing thing and says that he used the word classless. And who knows if Brayden actually said that or if that was Adrian ad-libbing his reaction. But now we get a reaction from Charity. Charity is affected by the word classless coming from Brayden. So interesting, hearing this information come from someone else about Brayden didn't have the same impact as being told that her character was being questioned by Brayden himself. Do you know what I'm saying? Like something about not being in the energy of the attachment made it so that she could hear his words better. Very weird. Anyway, she leaves the party. The host comes in and tells everyone Charity's really upset by something she heard, and she left. You're not going to see her again until the rose ceremony. The guys have this like very dumb conversation afterwards, but Adrian finally does mention that he brought up Brayden. Okay, then we cut to the rose ceremony. Once again, all the attention is on the tension between Adrian and Brayden. Something I found funny about this is, Brayden is like pissed off and stressed out and frustrated at the camera. But if you listen to his commentary, what he's annoyed with is that Adrian is not paying attention to himself. He's basically saying, Adrian, what is going on? Why are you paying so much attention to me? Pay attention to yourself, which is a kind of interesting commentary on how types can project their own behaviors onto other people. Brayden is like dumbfounded that Adrian is not paying attention to himself, that Adrian could be directing his attention to someone else, that he wouldn't be as like self-focused as he is as a 7. We love it. We love it. Anyway, going home, we have John Henry, Spencer, Josh, and Caleb, the doctor. And that concludes episode 2. So moving forward, I'm only going to recap one show at a time so that I'm not just overloading you with information like I did today. If you made it to the end, thank you for watching. I'm excited to see where this goes. I love a 7 villain. Also, do you guys remember what I said about how 7s act on reality TV? Let's see, 7s are always a mixed bag. There's like the lovable goofball that nobody takes seriously but everybody loves. Or there's like the hedonistic asshole that ends up being a bitch. Was I right or was I right? We'll see how far he goes, how far he manipulates Charity, if Charity can pick up on these vibes herself, where she's going to go, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, tell me your thoughts, your opinions, anything you picked up on. If you think I missed anything, give it all to me. Again, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next episode.